This video is to introduce you to the idea behind my book, and I thought we'd just start with drawing merfolk tales. So all you need is a pencil or a pen, a bit of paper, maybe a tablet or an iPad. And the first thing we are going to be looking at are basic tale shapes. So the basic outlines of your mer creature's tail. I'm only going to do 3 very basic ones. So starting with the 2 triangles tail, which is just 2 triangles. One looks like an ice cream cone, and then another smaller triangle on the bottom, and then you, voila, have a tail. This is the leaf shapes tail. I call it that because everything is made of little leaf shapes. You can see that the lines are a little more curved. You can always pause this if it's going too fast. That's the idea. And there's the leaf-shaped tail. Oh, that was quick. And the wine glass tail. So it looks kind of like a wine glass. Pretty wonky wine glass. And you'll notice I'm not being super careful with my lines. I don't mind a bit of wonky art. Again, feel free to press pause if you would like to concentrate on how this tail needs to be drawn. This is your basic outline that you start with any tail. The next thing we're looking at is caudal fins. So the caudal fins are the little bits on the bottom of the tail, and they're very important for merfolk because they are used for propulsion. So, they help them get away from sharks. But they can look cool as well. So you can see all these different variations. And in my book, there are a lot more versions of caudal fins that you can practice. Nice long fins, sort of scaly fins, round fins. Again, press pause if you would like to look a bit closer at any of these pictures. And after you've done your caudal fin and your basic tail shape, you need to look at scale patterns. This is a very classic fish scale kind of thing, where you start with semicircles that go along in a sort of horizontal line, and you just repeat them. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Your hand might get a little bit tired. That's okay. Have a rest, give it a shake. This is probably my favourite scale pattern, to be honest. Don't forget to decorate your caudal fins if you want them to have a little bit of something interesting. The next scale is the netting scale pattern. So first of all, you start at the top right corner and draw a long, slightly curved diagonal line to the opposite side of the tail. And you repeat these curving diagonal lines at regular intervals until the tail is filled. Then repeat the process starting at the top left corner of the tail. And this series of diagonal lines will cross over the others and make a classic net pattern. It's important to curve the lines slightly, as this creates a sort of 3D look to your tail. And then just go back through and see if there are any great big gaps that you need to fill with another line. And finally, for people who like to be a bit precise, well, you don't have to be, you can be sloppy if you want, but this is sort of the bubble scale look where you just draw heaps and heaps of tiny little circles all snuggling next to each other. They don't have to be uniform. Some can be big, some can be small. They don't have to be perfect, luckily for me. And I've just dropped back to the classic scales to show you that you can also add a few different things like stripes and dots and vertical lines, diagonal lines to each individual scale if you would like to add a bit of movement and texture. Also, you don't just have to stick with the one scale pattern on a tail. This one's got bubbles, it's got scales, it's got nets, it's got lines. Mix and match. Those bubbles can get really tiring, so you might need a little rest and give yourself a break. I think that might be what I did when I did these scales here. Once you've mastered these very basic tail shapes and scale patterns, you can go on to create all kinds of fantastic patterns, textures, shapes for your merfolk tails. Here are just a few examples, but there are so many more in the Mermaid's Book of Tales, and there are so many more locked in your imagination that it'll be really exciting to see what you come up with. And you know, we haven't even looked at colour yet. Here's just basic colour pencil colouring in style, and look at the change that happens like that. Now if you're using an iPad or a tablet, you're drawing digitally, then you can do this, which is create a layer underneath your line drawing where you just do big swathes of colour using, say, a watercolour brush or any kind of art brush that Procreate or Fresco might have, and rely on the lines that you've already drawn to make the shapes, and you get a nice ombre kind of effect. You can see I've also gone back through and coloured in a few select scales just to add a bit of interest and movement and variety. But the other thing you can do is you can actually start just with the basic tail shape, skip the drawing of the scale patterns, and move straight into applying colour and creating texture and scales just with watercolour or pencils or textures or whatever it is that you're using. On this program, I've actually done this digitally, and you can see, you might be able to see the marching ants around my top triangle shape. So that just makes sure that I don't get any leakage out of the outside of the outlines. And then you take the outlines away and look. So now you've practiced creating all of these marvelous tails. The next thing you need to focus on, of course, will be bodies. The possibilities are endless. Mer-rhinos, mer-pigs, mer-origami, mer-tea party, mer-snacks, classic mermaids, mer-tiger, or mer-hippos. It's a menagerie. You can learn much more in my book, The Mermaid's Book of Tales, published by Walter Foster and Quarto. And I should probably mention its companion, Unicorns and Unicorns, where you learn all about unicorn mashups, but we'll save that for another video. For now, thank you so much for listening and have a marvellous time working on your tales.